Good morning to our troubled tribe. This is not your regularly scheduled programming. As you've seen, we've taken a pause, not because of COVID, because that made us go apeshit crazy, but rather because, systemic racism and generations of genocide and centuries of collective gaslighting have come to the surface, and apparently we're ready to talk about it. So we're trying to pass the mic, utilize the platforms that we have for our brothers and sisters that are people of color. Obviously, this is something that we don't take a very gray stance on. As survivors of institutional abuse, systemic oppression is obviously very real. Systemic racism is very real in the United States of America, and we can absolutely have a conversation on that. But prior to that, number one, we would need to have members of that community on the podcast. We're not going to have that conversation on our own. That's just not necessarily appropriate on 2020. But secondly, you should do some education. So personally, my first film internship, the first documentary I ever worked on was Black Panther's Vanguard the Revolution. It's a PBS documentary currently on Amazon Prime from the amazing Stanley Nelson and Firelight Films in Harlem, New York. So check that out. Check out Black Power Mixtape. That's an awesome film as well. And then do some research into these few things: the Greenwood Massacre and the Tulsa Race Riots. Also, COINTELPRO, which was a division of the FBI created to infiltrate, disrupt, discredit, and neutralize civil rights groups like ourselves if we had been there at the time, but specifically, obviously, the Black Panthers. They're responsible for the mass murder assassination of the MOVE organization, which was a young Black, mostly student, civil rights group in Philadelphia, where our government literally sent people in and set that house they lived in on fire and shot them as they exited. I believe only one adult survived that situation. It's pretty much a Waco. So if you're not familiar with COINTELPRO, their tactics, some of which were illegal, got them to be shut down when awesome advocates stormed the building, broke into the FBI. I remember this is the 70s. You could do that, right? So they broke in, released documents to the press, and allegedly got COINTELPRO shut down in the 70s. However, we all know that that's not true. So if you do a little bit of research on that, remember Freedom of Information Act, all of this data is out there. And if you're lazy, we've all made documentaries for you to just go watch. But you kind of need to know what's going on, because these COINTELPRO tactics are what you're dealing with now. We're seeing this on the streets in every city across America. We're dealing with this individually and especially on online as well. Censorship is really big right now. So please look it up. I'm not trying to spend a million times on that. If you're on TikTok, hop on, because we post a lot on COINTELPRO and the Greenwood Massacres as well. We just got off our message ban on TikTok, so you can send us messages and we can reply now. So that's awesome. We are permanently banned from live feeding at Talk Troubled on TikTok because I was speaking about James Baldwin's concept of white genocide, and it keyworded as dangerous behavior. I don't get an appeal. There's no conversation. We're just permanently banned. And we're on a shadow ban for posting about COINTELPRO. So TikTok and China and the censorship are pretty great, you guys. But, we do have a lot of stuff over there if you want to check it out. But please just do some research. We will be jumping into that larger conversation with some amazing activists and advocates that we've been teaming up with. But let us bring it to the main show today. So I know that most of you, at least from the survivor community that I communicate with off of the podcast, are absolutely familiar with the fatal situation at Lakeside Academy in Kalamazoo, Michigan, that happened on my birthday this year, April 29th. A 16-year-old boy named Cornelius Frederick was killed. But I do want to back it up to set the story appropriately, so that there's not confusion. So this is part of a much larger issue that we have talked about and we're going to get into really deeply in the next few weeks. But as you all know, it isn't just kids, with trust funds whose parents are willing to spend $60,000 to have them legally abused in the Catskill Mountains. Also, children in the foster care system are sent into these programs, these boarding schools, if you want to call them that, where the taxpayer dollar is paying for their treatment. A lot of these kids that are being sent by tax dollars into therapeutic boarding schools, especially these awesome equestrian boarding schools with animal therapy and all this jazz, they are diagnosed with mental health disorders as relation and from causation of abuse. So what I mean by that is I haven't had my coffee, so forgive me, you guys. But I mean that a lot of them, like a lot of us, had post-traumatic stress disorder, complex PTSD disorder, or some sort of brain damage as a result of too many stress hormones for too prolonged periods of time, right? And they were diagnosed with these things, and part of their treatment is this therapeutic boarding school. So with this specific situation, we have Cornelius Frederick. When he was around 12 years old, his mother died. He was put into the care of his stepfather, who was then funneled into our friendly, it's statewide, but it's a federal issue, mass incarceration, stable prison ships that we've created because apparently losing our slaves was just too much for McDonald's and Victoria's Secret and Starbucks and all of these companies that still continue to use slave labor through the mass prison system that we have today, which needs to be dismantled as well. But again, we'll let those people speak for themselves. So Cornelius's stepfather goes into prison, and since there was nobody else to take him, he and 4 siblings were sent into Michigan foster care. Michigan foster care put them in long-term facilities. Cornelius was actually at 2. I didn't dig too much into the first one because I don't care at this moment, but he spent 2 years at his first program, and then he was transferred around 2 years ago to Lakeside Academy in Kalamazoo. Lakeside is owned by Sequel Youth and Family Services. They are national. They do have national accusations and allegations. I have not gone through any of the cases. There are cases. I didn't see any that were closed, but again, haven't dug that deep, so you guys dig away. The sequel has national allegations for physical and sexual abuse. Excuse me. I don't think I have corona, but excuse my... I'll coffee, you guys. Okay. So he gets sent there. So I just want to be very clear. When the corona outbreak really started to get scary in April is when they really started to have the conversation publicly. A lot of these kids, we've seen 3 different programs had mass escapes. These kids panicked about this global fatal pandemic. I mean, for those of you who are in these programs, just give yourself a 10-minute break at some point and imagine how they would have communicated this information to you. Because everything they told us is tainted, biased, and it's used to manipulate and emotionally disturb and mentally and psychologically control. And what better to play with than a global pandemic? So I think that it's pretty safe to say that they weren't given peace of mind in this situation. Now, Lakeside Academy in Kalamazoo, Michigan, where Cornelius was, did have an outbreak. I don't believe that they believed they had an outbreak because they avoided testing until he died in the hospital and was tested positive for corona. And then over 40 other people were. But I think that he knew he had corona. I'm gonna not assume what was going on in this situation, but what I do know is that over 28 boys ran away from the school. That there were a lot of them that were sick that did have symptoms. Cornelius possibly being one of them. Again, that would be an assumption on my part right now. I don't know. I know that he is corona positive. I don't know if he was symptomatic prior to his death. But I do know that according to what I'm hearing from family members of kids who were in the room, that he threw the sandwich in a rebellion against eating a sandwich that he thought was ill-prepared by someone who could have coronavirus, which obviously he was correct about. He threw a sandwich, and he was restrained to literal death by, the big guys that are in these programs that do the tackling, chasing, restraining, and beating on the kids. We all had them. We've talked about ours. I am a little concerned about the numbers of staffers being reported. I have most reports say there were 4 staffers that were on top of him at the time. At least 2 that were physically on him, 1 on his neck and 1 on his back. And again, these are all grown males, at least over 200 pounds. Excuse me. So he was revived by emergency EMTs, but put on life support and died within, the next day or so at the hospital. We didn't post any of the stuff with him on life support. It's horrific. It doesn't need to happen. We've mostly been posting pictures of him when he was young and happy and smiling. So you guys know that I watched Tom Malkowski die in March of 2004, and I know that most of you watched someone else die too. And we are those kids in the room. So this is our responsibility to make sure that this isn't something that just goes away. Because I know that people who haven't been around, like especially the young people, they're like, oh, this is so egregious. This is like, obviously there will be justice. This is obviously there will be justice. But I just want to remind everyone that Martin Lee Anderson's murder at the hands of sheriff deputies in Florida was on camera. It was on camera. There were multiple court cases and no charges were ever filed. Okay? And I also want to remind you that Cedric Napoleon Price, because Google will fuck with you if you don't use his birth name. Cedric Napoleon Price out here in Killeen, Texas. I'm in Dallas. He was killed. He was sat on, restrained to death again over food by a special ed teacher at 12 years old in a Killeen public school. And even though his death was obviously declared a homicide, and even though all the children in the class testified before the Texas grand jury, no charges were ever filed. In fact, the teacher who sat on him to death and then propped his lifeless body in the chair and wiped the drool from his face to pretend she hadn't killed the boy, and the aides that assisted her, still work with special ed children. So I get that it's a time when we really feel like people are listening to the cause, but I just really want to remind us that this is always an uphill battle, and that I'm hoping that because the epidemic of people of color and young black men screaming, I can't breathe, in an echo loop across America as they're being murdered in our streets, in our faces, on our live feeds, maybe, hopefully, we can get a little bit of traction for Cornelius as well. Because he is not an isolated incident. I know we all wish he were, but he is not. We know that, right? But maybe if we can get the Black Lives Matter activists and we can get some sort of a critical mass of activity that's happening now to speak his name and to advocate for him, maybe he can be the last high profile, obvious brother stolen. We don't need any more Aaron Bacon's, Martin Lee Anderson's, Cedric Napoleon Price's. We don't. So I'm really hoping that this is an opportunity that perhaps the table is set appropriately for this. So yesterday began the day, it was his official online day of solidarity to raise awareness. We and Amanda Householder from the Exposing Circle of Hope and her team and everyone, we're devoting at least 3 days. We're going to go through the weekend. If you or anyone you know is local to Kalamazoo, Michigan, there is an on-the-ground protest and memorial. Again, like I said, we'll be possibly speaking remotely to the effect of the troubled teen industry, because the activists working on it are looking on it from a racial standpoint and a foster care standpoint, but are completely unfamiliar with the troubled teen industry. And so, I mean, can you imagine how horrified they are, right? Like, they're not used to this. So there's some amazing nonprofits on the ground in Michigan that are championing this. And so hopefully that will be the difference between all the times it didn't go anywhere and this, which we do hope will go somewhere. Other stuff, update. So yesterday, I don't know when, around 3 or 4 p.m. yesterday, into the Day of Solidarity, which, by the way, TikTok, 100,000 views on his Justice for Cornelius hashtag yesterday alone. The state of Michigan made an immediate press release announcement. They have revoked the state license on Lakeside Academy. And they are promising, but we really need to stay on this, and also this isn't enough, but they're saying that restraints will no longer be used in state licensed youth facilities. So firstly, that does not include, obviously, you guys know, it doesn't include the private, it doesn't include the religious, it doesn't include any facility that is not licensed by the state of Michigan, and they are not all required to be licensed. And so this is the same thing when people are like, oh, they banned conversion therapy in this state. Well, that's really cute, but the religious organizations, who are primarily the ones torturing children with this kind of like psychotic behavior, they don't count. They're outside of that limitation. So they're going to continue torturing and abusing children, to try to like change who they fundamentally are, right? So we just got to be very clear with that kind of stuff. What it says to me from Michigan yesterday is that the activists and nonprofits that are working on this, and all of you who've joined on from a virtual perspective, are doing the right thing. They are being heard, and they are getting traction. So I really do hope over the next couple days, those of you who haven't already been like rocking it with us, that you'll hop on the internets. Justice for Cornelius. There's tons of stuff. It's all over all the platforms. There is a toolkit with the petition, with a bunch of the graphics, the clippies. They made a whole social media toolkit, especially for those who are just into the copy-paste life. We have it posted pretty much everywhere. But again, if you're on TikTok, it is linked in our bio. And yeah, I'm going to stop umming you guys. I'm going to have this coffee, but I really just wanted to come on here super quick to talk about it. Is there anything else? I guess, yeah, if you guys are local to Kalamazoo, please reach out to the nonprofits, because I know that they'd love to have a lot more on the ground support. And, that's pretty much it. Let me know if you have any questions or you need any help. We would love to see you guys organizing local events for Cornelius nationally. We'll be doing one out here in Dallas. So if you're in Dallas, hit us up. Definitely want to do this. But again, just a reminder, as long as the state continues to utilize tax dollars to abuse, torture, and murder children, especially when they are mass incarcerating people of color, thus forcing their children into the foster care system where they are being abused and murdered, well, honey, we are all complicit. We are all complicit in the systemic racism and the systemic oppression that are murdering our neighbors, So, we have to have this conversation now. Any bit of silence, even a whisper, is complicit in collective gaslighting. We all know what it's like to be gaslit. Let's stop gaslighting our people of color through their own genocide. Let's stop pretending it's not happening while it's happening. And let's do something about it. So this is a nice little cross-section, a little intersection. I would hope that anybody tuning into our podcast would care about Cornelius Frederick, whether or not he was in a troubled teen program. But I'm hoping that because he is one of us, because he is our brother, that this will be personal for you guys so that we can join forces with these nonprofits. We rarely have nonprofits outside of our own community who activate for these things. So this is an opportunity, and I really hope that we will rally behind them and blow this shit up. Because for the record, please check out both their petition and their demands to the governor and to the president, to Congress. They want national change. Sequel is a national organization. And so in order for them to feel like they got the justice they needed for Cornelius by shutting Sequel down nationally, they are calling for national review and reform and closures. So everything I've seen, you guys should be getting behind it. Make sure that you use the hashtag Justice for Cornelius, which I will be stalking all day. I look forward to sharing the shit out of your shit. All right. I love you guys. Please stay safe. Justice for Cornelius. I see you, survivor. And Black Lives fucking matter.